Good evening, folks. Glad to have you all here. I will start with owners' comments. And again, to remind everybody, we also do owners' comments when we talk about a particular topic. As a refresher to some of you who may not have been here before, we went to a 2-board meeting a month approach. We found it worked better than workshops and took some of the pressure off what we got to get on, because we can talk about an item and always know we got another board meeting. And with that as background, are there any owners who have comments up front? Patrick, help me watch if there's anybody.
Comment from Gary Hudspeth.
Okay, Gary, please name and address.
Right, Gary Hudspeth, 1471 Resolute Street. I'd like the board to open their meetings for in-person attendance by residents. I think it's time we can start doing that. Thank you.
We should have that conversation. I agree. I've had a couple of board meetings talk about it. I don't know if we.
I think after the last meeting, you said, yeah, we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I think we do.
Should we put it on an agenda?
We'll put it on the next agenda. With that, Susanna, can I verify this? Do we have any other owners' comments? Okay, Susanna, can I verify that the meeting was properly noticed?
Yes, it was at least 48 hours in advance.
Can I verify that we have a quorum?
You sure do.
I don't think I see Kevin online. I don't know if
I
he's
heard he
joining.
declined the meeting.
Pardon? He declined the meeting. Okay. So with that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Over here.
How?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to call this evening's meeting to order. And I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please. So moved. Second?
No second.
Celia, second. Any comments on the agenda?
Would the board have an appetite to add talking about in-person meetings to the agenda, since we've been talking about it the last couple of weeks?
I think we should have that posted for residents to weigh in on that also. And I've just proposed waiting.
I can't imagine that if somebody had a problem with it, they just continue to Zoom, but I know there's people out there.
If we do hybrid.
Yeah, well, I would assume that we would continue to do that, but it's me.
So just,
Okay, never mind.
Comments? Wait till next meeting, or I don't care.
I think an easy solution is just to start on January 1st.
it's to what?
At your guys' January meeting.
Yeah. And if when we move towards that, I would think first of the year would be the time, because we only have one more meeting in November and one in December.
Well, we don't even have another meeting in November.
Oh, we don't?
It's just the December meeting.
Okay, so we just.
So we got one meeting in December.
So
okay, so
it would be a January.
I don't know who the guru is of all things agenda wise going forward, but if it's Susanna, next meeting,
I have it
open
down.
them up to the public still on the agenda. So any other changes to the agenda or potential changes, or are we good to go?
I'm good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So it's open in January? Or
No,
next
we're going to
meeting?
talk about it in the December board meeting.
Okay,
We'll make the
December
decision,
board meeting.
and then it can be open for public comment. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the board meetings of October 13th and October 27th? So moved. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, for all the new people, what we do is we get the meeting minutes floated around within a day or two after the meeting. We provide comments online. So we come to this meeting with all the board members already having signed off. Any comments by the board on the minutes?
I just want to confirm, Susanna, you did make the changes that we requested of the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, so let's go to action item 1. And action item 1 will be a standing item for a couple of meetings as we go through the transition. And I'm going to turn it over to Amber to kind of drive the bus on item 1A, B, C, and D.
Absolutely. So this is the first board meeting with Grand Manners officially as your management company, which we are
very excited. First and foremost, most of the homeowners and everyone probably saw the notification that went out announcing Lauren Gunyon as the new executive director. She started today. And we have Ariel Rivera across the table who started last week as the finance manager. So we're very excited to have both of these positions filled in on site. As far as staffing updates, we have hired 2 people this week, so we're thrilled about that. So
3.
Three.
Yes, maintenance.
Oh, that's correct. 3, my mistake. So the only thing that we have open now for full-time positions is the operations manager and the service area manager positions. The rest are part-time positions on Nikki's team.
So
Everything else,
those 2 open positions, have you got good leads?
we have
or-
candidates. Yes,
So
we
you have
just, we
candidates,
haven't
so
filled
it's a
them yet.
matter-
We haven't found the right people for those positions yet.
Okay.
In
Those
fact,
are-
have interviews
Those are
tomorrow
pretty
as well.
critical positions. for
Correct.
us. Are you thinking of working within your existing Grand Manners team to find people? Or are you
We're
going
doing
outside?
all the above. We've actually gotten some resumes from other management companies, people who already work in the industry with other management companies. We have a promising lead of an interview that Susanna and I have tomorrow. So we'll know a little bit more in the next couple of weeks.
Before we go to item C, Lauren and Ariel, 2 important positions. Maybe you could just give 2 or 3 minutes about yourself to the community a little, where you're from, a little bit of background, and we'll do the same thing with you. So people, 2 critical positions, who are you?
Go ahead, Lauren.
We gave you a lot of advance notice, so we'll
I
see
know,
how
it's
you do.
All right, I'm Lauren Gunyon. I born and raised in Seattle, Washington. I spent a couple of years in Virginia for law school. Went back to Washington to work. I've worked as a public defender. I've worked as a clerk for a capital defense office. After that, I moved into working within the court system in administration and managing as essentially the executive director of the courts in a local county in Washington. I took some time off to have my son. That kind of coincided with COVID, and I started reaching out about new positions and found my way to Grand Manners and Celebration. And when I saw the posting and spoke with my husband and we learned about Celebration, it just seemed like an amazing community for our family to relocate to and kind of grow. So we're really excited about moving here. My son and husband will be joining me in December, and we look forward to meeting everybody and being a part of this amazing community.
You're a veteran now of almost, 8 hours?
Yes.
Maybe 10.
And I just want to say that it's very exciting to have an executive director who has a law degree.
Oh, Jackson.
You lost a job, Jackson.
Happily, but we're very excited.
We no longer need your counsel.
Fine.
There you go.
I'm done.
That's item 4. We're going to get there. Ariel,
Ariel.
tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, I was born Puerto Rico, went to university there, lived in New York for a couple of years. I've been involved with Celebration since the beginning. In 2000, I was the first on-site accountant for the CDD. So I have 21 years of CDD and HOA experience. I did my master's degree here in Stetson University when it was in Celebration.
Let's see.
So I have history in Celebration.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And that means you're out of a job.
Thank God. What I would like to say, and I'll be interested to hear in a minute how Amber's role will evolve, is we've said it a lot about how management picked up the role, but it was an unsustainable level that we were asking of people. Just in all seriousness, totally unsustainable. So it is nice now to have an executive director. We've never had a finance person. We had a person in the past who had a CPA who did that in Susanna's role also, and it was too much for one person. That person burned out, in all honesty, from having to work too many hours. So having a real honest to God executive management team, I think, is a huge advantage and is the only way I believe that we can perform at the level we need to perform at. So it is very nice. And actually, I'm pleasantly surprised that everything is filled before year end. This beats the time frame that we had in our mind. And we won't yell at you for at least another 2 or 3 weeks now at this way. So it's good to have everything rocking and rolling. And this is really a nice thing. So do appreciate it. Okay.
I too am thrilled that it was like a shock when you said this is Grand Manor's first official meeting. And it's like, you've been here, but you haven't been official. So
Yeah.
as one of 6 board members now, I am absolutely thrilled. I want to thank Amber for all of your role in this temporary position. I know you've been here and you're going to stay here, but you're not going to be here, and Lauren's going to be moving up. I also think it's important that, you know, we've been lacking an executive director for a while, lacking finance forever, and Susanna deserves a lot of credit for carrying a lot on your shoulders during these challenging times. With the transition and things upheaval, and then just personnel and keeping a lot of the key staff bolstered and keeping functions going for our residents. So thank you very sincerely, and thank you, Amber, for helping in that transition, and welcome, Lauren and Ariel.
Okay, Amber, is the transition over with?
No.
Next item.
We really can expect the transition period to go through the end of the year. And the reason I say that is the staff is getting used to all the new processes with the software, new processes in general for efficiency, but more importantly, the homeowners' accounts. So we have most of the information that was required from the previous management company. But up until the end of this month, they're going to be closing out the final bank accounts, sending over the final ledgers, and we still need October financials from them. So you can expect, obviously, that's going to take us through the end of the year, especially until Ariel can actually do his first set of financials for you on his own. We need all that from them. We did receive funds again today from CCMC, another large amount. But other than that, we did receive everything we were supposed to. So there's not really anything outstanding other than October financials and then closing out those final accounts. We have everything else. As far as Smart Webs is concerned, what they were doing compliance and architecturals with, that will be open. So they have access to those files until January 1st. So they can upload them slowly instead of in one large data dump. As far as we've kind of talked a little bit about management roles and responsibilities moving forward. With this transition, you guys were in a very different situation with the management company, with board members having to be overly involved, committee members having to be overly involved. The role of your management company is to do majority of the things that you guys were doing. And I just want to make that very clear moving forward that we are your management team. We are here to serve at the pleasure of the board. I sent out a communication earlier, and Brian, you sent out a communication to committee members just for efficiency of, if you're a committee, the committee chair, let everything flow as far as communication through the committee chair so that there's a nice stream of contact. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you have Susanna who's handling operations, and you have her serving 20 masters who are sending her all these emails and phone calls, and it just doesn't work that way. And that's how it was. Obviously, realistically, it was that way because it was broken. And so we're trying to fix that moving forward. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Susanna handles everything operations, everything executive director wise. Above that is going to go through Lauren, and then everything financial will go through Ariel. And if you have any questions as a community, Brian's your board president. He's the person to reach out to. Everything's going to trickle through the board president moving forward for the board and through the committees.
So you and I spoke briefly today, so let's just start the Q&A back and forth.
Okay.
Because a lot of people have a lot of questions. So let's start with the first simple one. Who do I send emails to? You or Lauren?
Lauren.
As board president. So
Lauren.
So
Lauren is now officially the executive director as of today. I was the interim, so you can send them to Lauren. If you would like to, as a board president, still copy me, I'm completely fine with that.
So I'm not
going away.
Okay, so let's answer that question. what is Amber's future? I mean, are you here for 60 days, whether you're working from Carolinas or working from here, but your celebration is where you're going to concentrate on your time as you
Correct.
build through a transition? Because Lauren, as she said, is moving in December. We got Thanksgiving, we got Christmas, we got all that wonderful junk. So
Amber's always going to be available to you as the board president. I'm going to also be available to staff when Lauren's traveling. Lauren is the executive director now, so if you have a question that needs to be directed towards the executive director, that's where it should go. Lauren will reach out to me. I'm going to be in her back pocket for anything that she needs.
So is it a fair statement, and I'm trying to be very specific here, is it a
Okay.
fair statement to say that I, in the role of board president, should be dealing with Amber, and it is Amber's responsibility to bring you in when you need to? Or should
Dealing
it-
with
or am I
Lauren?
overstepping my bounds?
Dealing with Lauren. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
With
Yes.
Lauren, I'm sorry. But,
Yes.
and or am I overstepping my bounds when I copy you?
No,
I
you're
mean,
not.
I'd like to understand how it works.
No,
Or-
and I will tell you also, this is a conversation that you and Lauren can work on too. If it's going to also be how Lauren works. Does Lauren feel offended that you copy Amber? Like you feel like she's not capable? That's definitely a conversation you guys can have with each other. But I will tell you in the beginning, Lauren's probably going to really want you to copy Amber.
Okay. I probably will copy both, but at some point in time, in the next few days,
Yeah.
you and I need to get together
Absolutely.
without Amber and figure out how we're going to work.
Yes.
And we start down the path to tomorrow.
Can I just, so for any questions or issues we as a board have, goes to you, and then you will decide if that's a Susanna thing or if
Goes
that's
to-
something.
It goes to
Goes
Brian.
to Brian.
Goes to the president.
Oh, okay. All right. Got it.
And it's just, and the reason for that is so that you don't have 6 board members contacting.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get
And
that.
it could be on the same subject with different direction. And that was kind of what was happening before.
So I'll let you go right next. We've actually tried this a couple times and it got totally broken. And one thing that has become very apparent to me, and I think some of the other board members, is we've ended up with so many people in town for perfectly legitimate reasons over the last 25 years who ended up with their own systems and their own access in the town hall and stuff like that. And it has become clear to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that it has created a ton of inefficiencies. And I have asked Amber, and I know other people have said, play the bad cop. We need, and I'm certainly saying this to you and Susanna and you know, we need to get it down to everybody is going through a process channel. And I'll let you go in a minute. Now, there are also committee heads. We have a committee head for recreation. They should also be able to go straight to a JR or a Susanna or somebody like that with a copy maybe to, and I'll wait for your edicts. But we have people who are confused, who are trying to comply.
Yes.
So at some point, we're going to have to educate people so that they get crystal clear answers from you, back there in the back row, JR,
And that
so that it's clear.
You're absolutely correct. Those committee heads, and that's what I mean when I'm saying the committee chairs, should be able to go, if you have, Parks and Rec committee, they should be able to go to Nikki. But the rest of the committee should not be reaching out to Nikki.
Right.
That's what I mean by that.
And what I would like to ask is that a part of your getting on board here is you folks really think about the communication help, because I have had people reach out to me and say, I'm trying to do the right thing. What is the right thing? Please help me to get this. So I think we're going to go through some of this for 2 months because you're new and Susanna's role is changing. And we told everybody to go to Amber and there's going to be confusion as we straighten it out.
And here, let's talk a little bit about what you and I were talking about as well. I want to clear up some confusion that some homeowners may be having about where to contact and what's the best place to contact. When all this rolled out, everyone was like, well, where do I call for this? And you have different subjects that you're like, do I do this? Do I do that? townhall@sarahmail.com is going to be the most efficient way if you have a general question. And what I mean by a general question is that if you are a homeowner that has a question on your account, if you're a homeowner that has anything specifically to do with your residence, an architectural application, a compliance letter, those should all go there. The main number for town hall, when you call that number, don't be surprised when you're asked to push a prompt. The main number is now being forwarded to RSG, which is Grand Manor's call center. The reason for this is so that every phone call, no matter what, is answered. Right now, as of yesterday, we have 82% first call resolution rate, which is fantastic. And what that means is that they're being able to answer these through the call center without having to transfer any of those calls to town hall. So those are phone calls that town hall didn't get. To date, we have 700 phone calls that have been answered. And that's as of November 1st. So when you are calling that main town hall number, don't be surprised when you are getting that prompt. The first thing that they're going to ask you is, what is your address or what community do you live in? And that's so that they can track you down. There's no caller ID that's going to tell somebody that's calling in that you're from Celebration. So please just try and be patient, have a little grace, and just get them the information they need so that they can get you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm actually on the board portal right now as we're talking. And it shows 605 contacts in the last 10 days. And it shows who those contacts are, what the subject was, the length of time on the call. And it is truly remarkable to see how many items can be resolved in under 5 minutes. And if we're being honest, most of us waited on hold more than 5 minutes in the past. So to be able to get your call, get it in, get it answered, get it resolved, 82% resolution rate, this is a sea change for the community. And if people will be patient and just trust that it works, I think that helps. The other thing I would say is, I recognize that we are a town of exceptional residents, and all of us are important and special.
Yes.
Some of us are more important and special than others, apparently. But when it comes to calling in, everyone is going to be treated with grand manners, celebration, friendliness, and help. But it doesn't do any good to yell at them, "Do you know who I am?" That person on the other end of the line doesn't know who you are, but they're going to give you great service anyway. And so the days of having to use your influence and wield special power because you knew somebody, that's changing. And I hope that the community will understand that that's to everyone's benefit. Even if some people feel like they no longer have the inside track, they'll all be handled in a professional, friendly way. And we're able to track it and see it. I mean, there's no surprise here. So
we're also trying to your point last week when we had so much traffic at the front desk, and you know, we know it's because of the transition. It's obviously not like that on a regular basis, but there was a lot, even with this, after the celebrators meeting, everyone, you know, wanted to get their questions answered, which was great. We're trying to put something in process at the front desk where we can also track the walk-in traffic, because we can give you stats on the emails and the phone calls, but I mean, we had a lot of traffic last week. So we want to put something in place where we know on a regular basis how many people are actually stopping in town hall for questions or need assistance on. They're not here to just attend a class.
So you have comment?
No.
Question?
I'm good. She explained everything I wanted to
Okay.
ask.
I mean, I've told some of the people here, but I mean, I was at a.
Celia, can you get your mic, please?
I was at a dinner last week with about 26 people, and a lot of people were very complimentary of how fast and how well the transition has worked. I mean, one thing I'd like to say is, Amber said tonight, this is Grand Manor's first meeting. I mean, I really don't ever want to hear about the past, meaning it's irrelevant. We are now a Grand Manor's company, and the only thing that matters is the level of service that we provide today, tomorrow, and going forward. And so, you know, there needs to be that we went through this whole litany of the past. The past is irrelevant. You know, now we are into how do we provide service going forward.
Absolutely.
Other items?
No.
Okay, so discussion of board and management roles, responsibilities. We touched on it, but I think it's worthy of having board members make sure there's clarity. So we're saying through the board president, it is entirely possible. Some of you have reached out to me, Celia is an example, and I've said, just send this person an email or a text and copy me. I'm perfectly happy like that. I mean, I understand what we're trying to do. But what I'm really trying to do is get it down to, okay, let's teach residents not to go through a board member.
Right.
Correct.
We have a few where I've helped them, but what I've done is I've sent it to town hall at Ceranet, and I've copied the person and I've done it. And we were joking before, but I'm going through withdrawal symptoms. I used to spend way too many hours and get way too many emails, and it's causing me to go, crap, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. But it is the way it's supposed to be. It should actually be a volunteer job. It's working. is there any comments or questions on the part of the board member about what we're trying? And I think it's good for the community to know that we're trying to really change this into a pure volunteer, less time type thing.
Yeah, a clarification, a comment. I think we're trying to model the same behavior that we're asking the community to do. So I think I fully support this. I think it's important to also make the distinction, however, that given the wide range of things that we work on, from time to time, the board president may designate another board member to be the one voice for the board. In other words, if there's a particular issue and we've identified that David is handling that issue,
Correct.
David doesn't have to route everything back through Brian.
Correct.
He is the one voice on that issue. And I think we've been pretty clear about where those moments have come up and what those responsibilities are. So I don't think it precludes any of us from ever having communication with management, but it will be when the board has designated that that's our. Am I correct in that?
That is 100% correct.
This is not meant to be militant. This is meant to be just a clear line of communication for the asks and the directives coming from Brian. Now, an example for you, Susanna is going to be handling with Jennifer, the board meetings, the agendas. So if you have something for the condo council, reach out to Susanna. You don't have to go through Brian.
Okay.
Because that's what you're doing.
Right.
And using, we'll talk about Island Village later, but we've made a decision that David, Jackson, and Kevin are in charge of all things Island Village. They're going to copy me where I need to be copied. And ultimately, it requires 6 votes or 7 when we're at full points to get through something. But yes, there are going to be point people because there are certain things that we don't need the president, whoever the president is, being involved. We're trying to just change the whole approach.
We're just trying to make this organized, not so that nobody can communicate with one another.
So a couple of other comments. I think we're moving to a place that we've tried to move for years. And that's the board doing oversight, the board doing policy, not the board solving the issues. Management is hired, staff is hired to solve the issues. If there's something wrong with the system, let's talk about that and try to rectify that. And Lauren, I know that you did a lot of that in your prior work. You didn't talk about it. We heard you talk about it when Grand Manners brought you in for an interview, but about a lot of that and mediating and so forth. So the board is about policy. The big change that we're talking about here is professionalism. So professionalism doesn't mean lack of courtesy, but it's professionalism. We're operating in a different set of standards than we were a month ago. That's not saying we weren't professional, but we have systems. The thing I would say to you is I know that we're working through you, but that's something I hope you will revisit to say that doesn't need to go through me. So I'd rather have us err on the side of I'll ask you to set up a meeting. You say, no, you set it up yourself. But
yes.
But initially, until it's released, I think that's something. And then I think for the community and all of us, this is evolving. So we'll try it and then we'll see how it works and where do we need to tinker with some things. Like you've said, it'd be nice to track the front desk traffic. So we know how much it is, probably more than you may have had in other communities. So it's different here. So we evolve. So that's part of the communication so that we can communicate back to the community, hey, we've shifted. And so here's where we are. We're continuing all about service and professionalism.
Well, and to follow up, to follow through though, I have zero desire to be anybody's secretary or administrative assistant. So we're going to make, like tomorrow we've got a meeting with Ariel and we're going to make a dramatic financial change to have him become the all things financial person. We met before you actually started and everything, and I think that was part of the pitch that you actually liked. There's been so much, Brian, over the last 4 or 5 years that we need to change that. We'll make those changes a lot of places. I mean, the one thing is we've had to wait on you and really you and I getting together and starting to form a relationship that really leads to the next person, whoever the president is next March, so that we can move forward.
And with all things financial being Ariel, that takes that off of then Susanna, which frees her up to do the things that she's supposed to be doing. So
all things that are going to be the next topic on the agenda.
So as this unfolds, I imagine that you'll, once you get the feel of how the board's really been operating and how much we've been doing, that you'll be looking at all the processes. For instance, I don't understand why 7 people have to proofread the minutes before they're done.
We've been looking at all the processes already, especially what's going on in town hall.
Not that I don't understand why they were, but I'm just thinking.
I don't know about that process, so that's something that you'll have to bring to my attention.
If you're talking about the minutes,
Mhm.
we specifically did that so that we didn't waste a bunch of time in meetings. Because what we have learned is there are 2 or 3 people who always respond to the minutes and no one else does. But then if everybody has a chance to see them in advance, we can approve. Meetings had turned into too long of events. And
Right.
we said, let's just.
No, I understand that, but again, past is past, but there was a time where somebody took the minutes, that person next day typed them up, showed them to the Susanna at the
Mhm.
time, looked at it, sent it to the treasurer, he looked at it, done.
Yeah, but you don't, right, nobody writes a set of minutes that Jackson, Brian, and David agree on. So we make changes to each other's
And
things.
some of those are,
Well, but
Those minutes are our official record. and
They're
we have
official
an
record.
obligation, Fiduciary obligation to make sure they're accurate. So I'm not going to give up that right. Just not.
Yeah,
This
so-
is,
so
and this
it's-
is just going to be you guys as a board. That in particular is not something that we're going to mess with because that's your guys' board
It's an
policy.
official record.
Now, when it
Sometimes
comes
it's
to the
about clarity.
staff, that's a different story. We're going to revamp policies and things like that because the whole point here of having a management company is that you guys shouldn't have to be in the weeds every day.
That's the next part. I agree with Cindy's idea that we should be more efficient and
Yes.
productive.
I will tell you that standard is similar to what you said. It would be the minutes are prepared, they go to the community manager, any changes there, and then it usually goes to the secretary.
And I will tell you that most people rely on 2 or 3 of us to read the minutes and then say they're probably got to be good.
Well,
So,
and I don't comment because I have a different writing style than David,
Mhm.
and his style is different than yours, and your style is different than Jackson's. So it's like, okay, guys,
That's why I will tell you that your minutes should be very action-based only so that there is not discussion in there.
and
Yeah,
that's
well,
why
that's
we,
how
that's
it-
why we
that's the
have a
other
new
thing.
lawyer who can figure out the minutes process with people and we will go
yeah,
forward.
and that's the other thing. It was just basically the action items, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it should be
And then
motion,
nothing,
resolved.
all that other
blah, blah.
stuff. Yeah.
All right. Any last critical issue on transition or the president is going to declare this part of the meeting closed? Anything else?
No.
Everybody's clear. We're marching forward. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to update on amenity improvement projects. So
Can I ask you a question, please, before you start? Only because, can you make it clear to the residents that are on our call why our ID isn't blasted all over the place, why it's protected for the Zoom?
sure,
Thank you.
we're not going to put the ID on Facebook because we have had Chinese hackers. We have had calls called in from the Chinese and Russians.
Zoom
created
bombs.
all kinds of
Zoom
issues, Zoom calls, all kinds of things. So from a security perspective, it's only that way. And these meetings are for residents, which is
They're for-
why it's in a resident protected thing. So we're, as a board, and that we have had legal advice on this. So we are not going to change this process. So that
Thank
is the
you.
reason why we're doing what we're
And
doing.
most
They're public for
general
our
counsel-
residents.
Mhm.
They're public for our residents, not for the world.
Right.
Yep, that's
Thank
correct.
Most general counsel will tell you that that is not a form
No,
to post.
so that's the
Thank you.
reason.
Say,
we did that.
yeah,
No, fair question.
general
Thank you.
counsel says
Correct.
Facebook is not a forum for posting official business.
Correct.
Okay, so then what we're going to do is go to amenity improvements. I'm going to start first, but I will remind the public again that we do take public comments as we talk about an item. So if somebody in the public wants to discuss it as we take each of these items, 2A, 2B, and 2C, we'll be happy to take public comments. So first of all, this will be a regular standing agenda item, update on these 3 items as they're spelled out here. Amber and I had a conversation. Susanna McLeod is the point person here. She's working with me. I've kind of made myself the point person so I can take the abuse. And I want to move this stuff forward. With that as background, let's start with lawn sports design. And we had a meeting last time. We made agreements. I want to do status updates and then I'll take comments. So lawn sports design, where do we stand, Susanna? What's been happening?
So, Brian,
We have prep for this.
take it away. Yes, the board approved the proposal to move forward with Albert Riddle, who is CROA's landscape architectural consultant. He did send the proposal. I did sign it. We're working on getting him the deposit check so he can start with the design. And this is for the lawn croquet at Heritage Hall.
And let me make, because I've had this question, so let me make this clear. In the design that we presented last meeting, it had 2 croquet courts. The motion that got approved was that Jackson either made or seconded or something like that. We're actually going to have 2 designs. We're going to have the design with 2 croquet courts or 1 croquet court and grass where the second one is at. And we can play grass sports there and build a second court in the future if demand does it. So we'll look at the pricing, et cetera, as it comes in. But right now we're getting the bids together so that we can move forward with that at Heritage Hall. So
And yeah,
that
we'll-
is moving forward, and we just got to set up the meeting to do it. Right?
Yes, that's the next step. Set up a meeting. So do you want to move on to lots B and D?
Let's go to, the engineering study on lots B and D.
Okay. So, the last meeting, it was approved for Franklin. What's the
KPM Franklin.
Yes, to do the civil engineering. I did sign the proposal. He said he got what he needed. He was going to get started and give us an update this week with his progress, probably, I think, by Monday. And then we can set up a meeting with them as well, I think, and kind of see where their head's at on that.
Yeah, we had, and just for background to refresh everybody, we being Adam Parrish, Dre Moyer, Susanna, and I had walked it with a couple of them from the engineering firm when they originally started this. So they had a good background. And then to the extent that we need to meet with them more to further expand it and clarify things, we will. So that's moving. If I remember right, they had thought 30 to 45 days. So
yeah,
there's a good chance by year end, we could be in decent shape on that one.
Yeah, they said they were digging in and ready. So
perfect. Okay, so then we're going to go to design works on fields 1 and 2. So what we will do here, we've actually put it on the screen. So let me provide a little more background to refresh people, since there were people who were asking questions. We had made the decision at the last meeting that we wanted to thoroughly investigate putting turf on field 2, and probably, and almost certainly it'll spill over a little into field 1, and then putting pickleball on field 1. The reason the board made that decision is that the fields have problems every time there is rain. I heard it's raining outside right now, and it's Florida. It was built in a swamp. I have discussed this at like the recreation meetings when John Trout and Marco Mecchia were there, who were two of the soccer people. I went to the fields and I met with Lee Moore and Steve Button. So I know that other people on the board have talked to these people too. There has been enthusiasm over the fact that it wouldn't be a legitimate size as wide as the field 3, but you could have a good lengthy field here that would have up to 4 fields that could go crossways, so that people could actually have younger kids practice. They don't practice on a full field anyway, so they go sideways to sideways. And then you would have a field that's good 365 days a year. I was told by Lee Moore and Steve Button that they think if we're going to go with this solution and lose field 1, they would like to see another grass field somewhere where they can have people play when they need it and stuff like that. One of the things I had bounced to the board just for conversation is we're going to be revising part of Lot D. Maybe we put some grass on Lot D so that people can practice something else on that while we're letting time pass and stuff like that. So that was part of the conversation. That is how we have ended up here. And we think this will easily be the most economical, since so many people in the community had a heart attack about the amount of money you're talking about on Lot B, because these are undeveloped properties. These fields are developed properties, and they are going to be much quicker and easier to use because they've already got lights and a lot of stuff like that. So Susanna, where do we stand with the process as regards fields or fields 1 and 2, and just getting ready to reach out for design?
So there was a meeting today to talk about, the approach, whether we're going to directly to a bid designer like an engineer, or we're going through someone who goes straight from a bid to construction, and then you send it out to other companies to get a comparison. So that discussion is still underway. I know the head of the pickleball front, Mike and Steve, we're looking at their specifications, adjusting those with this thought of, extending the turf and how the court's going to fit on that first field. And then we were going to also talk to the head of some of the soccer groups and figure out, what kind of size fields do they want? Is it comparable to what's on 3? And then, we'll go from there as far as putting a bid package together, and schedule a big group with a lot more people, players in there to get an RFP going.
So let me just add to that a little if I can. Go to the other slide, Patrick, if you can. So what was put together here, sorry. This is the current athletic field 3, which is the turf field. You'll see it is wider, and the length up there is 336 feet. And it's about 180 to 200 feet wide. So if you go then also, Patrick, and then go to the other one. So if you look at field 2, which is, blow it up a little like you had it before, which is the one to the right, you'll see it's about, you got to move it down just a little so I can see it here. So when you look at field 2, keep going just a little more so I can see the measurements. It's about 342, but it's at an angle. So I don't think that's a real 342. So what we're going to do is reach out to, and I was in this meeting today, and we're going to reach out to the soccer guys and say, okay, if we give you another field, it's the exact same length as the current turf field. It won't have the width. Everybody already knew that. You can see the 150 and the 180 up there. But then does that get you there? Probably we got to move down a little from the perspective of that angle. You don't really have 342. So some of it's going to spill over, I suspect, into field 1 for certain. But we need to get that feedback from Lee Board and John Trout and Marco and Steve Buttons so that we can design that a little bit better. When they actually were talking to people before as a task force, they had spoken to 7 groups. Arnco and Carlton Construction, 2 different firms, were both interested in doing the pre-construction services. So what pre-construction services means, I'll try to say it as clear as I can, is you have somebody who coordinates, and that's not too expensive. They do that, but then they're going to work with the subcontractors. They're going to look at the plumbing, going to look at the electrical, that you have to move the lights and stuff like that. So this RFP becomes a real process. My guess is this RFP cost us $100,000 to $125,000. I said it at the last meeting. I've said it a couple of times. I want to say it again out loud, because really what you are doing is you are designing the thing to think through all drainage issues, all, it would have the turf for the field, it would have the pickleball courts, it would have all that type of stuff. So then when you go out to bid, somebody might say, well, I'm going to bid on the turf field only. Somebody else might bid on the pickleball courts only and stuff like that. So you got subcontractors so that you're really ready to rock and roll and get a much more efficient bid. So that's what you're doing. The other alternative that you can do, and we actually approved last time, the pre-design bid construction. You could go with a McCree who wanted to just do a bid and then design thing, but that kind of locks you in more. I personally, but I'm willing to listen to the conversation here, would agree more with the approach of we're better off just getting the pre-design done right. It means you're spending $100,000. It means you really believe this is a viable thing. You go out and get the RFP for this first. We would have a meeting where we review the RFP. We bless the RFP to spend the 100, 110, whatever the number is going to be. And then you're rolling and going. I'll open it up for board comments and then can open it up for public comments. Jackson.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I've spent a long time as the liaison to the Recreation Committee over a period of years. And I have been consistently an advocate for having the complex fields be playable and accessible. And it's troubling to me that there's kind of a last minute pushback that mischaracterizes what we're doing here. I don't care how big your fields are. If they're not playable, they're not playable. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter how many nice fields we build if they're underwater. And so the reality has been that we have 2 fields that cannot be played a significant portion of the year, every year. And we didn't see so much of that because of COVID, but it is very much a reality. You can't play when it's wet on fields 1 and 2.
Without tearing up the fields.
Right. So the idea was that we had to go to AstroTurf at some point. But then to just back up for a second, we looked at the idea of modifying the drainage. The bid was $225,000 to do that. And the engineer told us there'll be a 10% gain in playtime. Now, 10% for $225,000 is not a good business decision. It's not a good anything decision. I'd much rather spend $225,000 to get the right solution and to have it done properly from a design bid build. David and Brian and I all endured the agony of not doing design bid build on the original fields, and it didn't work very well, to be honest.
We inherited them.
We inherited them. And so now we're in a situation in which we can do better, right? Okay, we can make this work better. I understand that you're giving up field 1 for field sports, soccer, lacrosse, flag football, but you couldn't use field 1 for 6 months out of the year. So if we give you field 2 for 365 days a year and we make it bigger, and frankly, a lot of the kids' sports are not played lengthwise, they're played widthwise. Mm-hmm. The reality is that for all of the yelling and screaming and posturing that goes around this, we're actually providing more hours of playtime in this structure than we have currently. So to those of you who think that somehow we're shortchanging children, you actually ought to do the math. It doesn't work out that way. And this is a rational decision that we're making. I fully support it. And I argued for months on this board to not do anything until we had a solution that worked for everybody. This solution gives us pickleball courts in a place where we can afford them. It is not everything the pickleball task force would want, I am sure of that, but it is a very good solution. And it gives our kids and anyone who wants to play sports like lacrosse, soccer, or flag football the opportunity to play 365 days of the year. And so to me, spending the money on the RFP, the $125,000, if that's what it turns out, doing a rational, thoughtful design bid build is the proper business decision. And to those of you that disagree, there's an election coming up soon. You're welcome to run for the CROA board and sit here and help us figure these things out. We are doing the best that we can, and I'm not being defensive. It is just a reality. We are trying to spend your money in a wise and thoughtful way, and we're trying to provide the most amenity that we can with the support of our management company, which has weighed in on this plan. And I think I'm accurately saying you agree that this is the right approach to take.
Correct.
So I don't think this should be controversial. I think this should be something that we as a community say, you know, that's really a smart decision. And we're glad we can make better use of this amenity. And so I fully support what we're doing here. And for those of you that were expecting something different, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is the reality and it's a good one.
Before we go to the public, Cindy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, but Jackson's exactly right. And if anybody remembers, which I don't expect you to, when we first started, when Celia and I and Jackson got elected to the board this last time, and we started kicking around where we were going to put the pickleball fields, I was absolutely dead against doing anything with these 3 fields, because in my mind, we spent all this money and now we're going to, you know, spend more money on the same plots of land until I heard the reasons behind it. And Jackson is absolutely right. You know, why would you want 2 fields that you can't play on most of the time? You know, bite the bullet, repurpose them, have, you know, 2 fields that can be used all the time and the pickleball field. And, you know, do the due diligence on the 2 lots that we have, because again, as Jackson said, this is a swamp. You know, we may not be able to do much with those 2 lots other than maybe a parking lot. That's the extreme, but if you listen to the conversations, if you read the reasons why, this makes perfect sense, and it's the best, I think, solution for the whole community. So.
Thank you. David, any
Yeah,
comments?
yeah. All of this is a process that is unfolding. Our large picture, to me, is twofold. We save money, we pay as you go. Through what we know that the community needs, we need a community center, whatever that looks like, and that's not cheap. So we need to be saving money for that. The other large picture item is the CCFC as a whole. We have dilapidated basketball courts, a court, and the CCFC has been talked about as a location for that. Once we get through, I'm not proposing anything for 1 and 2 lots or fields 1 and 2. So looking at that and looking at parking, the comment about maybe one of those areas could be grass fields. We had grass fields throughout the community before the CCFC existed, and those fields still exist. So the grass fields for people doing pickup games and throwing the ball exist throughout Celebration. So to me, that's a non-starter because they're there. Just to clarify, when we voted last time, and I think it was the design work, did we not separate for, as we get into budget purposes, field 1 and field 2? Did we not separate
we
that?
said, but
Or we would
we
ask.
said that when we proceed with this.
When we proceed.
want to break out the cost of the
Yeah.
turf field as opposed to pickleball, as opposed, so that we can have
Right.
clarity as to what we're spending
Right.
money on.
So we may find that whatever we need to do to put artificial turf on field 2 may be $750,000 or maybe $500,000. We then decide whether we do that and just leave it turf for a while longer. So we could decide that. Could that be part of? So as we get that design build, we can separate that into segments. And then the engineering study on lots B and D will also inform us as to how we might be able to use those, what it would take to make them usable for different purposes, whether it's parking, whether it's basketball, even pickleball. Okay. So to me, it's having that vision so that we can finish out. And so we don't have undeveloped areas in the CCFC, which is lots B and Ds still.
Celia, any comments?
I think Jackson said it all, and you know, the experts that are on social media ripping us apart are silent tonight. Nobody's talking.
They aren't experts
Well,
on social media. No, they're not experts.
Okay, but what I'm saying, what Jackson said is spot on. We're trying to save the community money. We're trying to make those fields, field 2, accessible to the kids 365 days a year. We're not penalizing the children. It has nothing to do with the children. We're trying to make things work. And no matter what we do or what we say, there's always somebody kicking that can in a different direction. But what Jackson said, we're doing the best we can.
Good, thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the public now. Remember, state your name and address in 3 minutes. Tim Zelmansky, you can go first, please. And then anybody else who wants to speak will recognize too.
Tim Zelmansky, 797 Oak Shadows. What are the plans for lot B and D then? And do we have any plans for them? Because I don't feel that it's responsible to make any changes to the existing fields until you have a comprehensive beginning to end plan of what you're going to do with those other fields. So you really know what your spend is. Because if you don't know what your spending is on lot D and what you're going to put there, maybe you're going to end up spending more money in the long run doing something else there that you could have done pickleball there or lot B. I still feel that you guys have not looked at all the avenues and you don't have a plan beginning to end. And it's a push to get pickleball for this, the unknown quantity of people who actually want it, which there seem to be very few. And you still haven't come up with a number and provided it to the public of how many people are actually interested in pickleball. There's about 6 people that pop up, and the biggest are a couple of people on the board and a couple of their buddies. So everyone's aware of what's going on with pickleball, and it does not seem like you have the community support that you need for it. So everyone's pushing back on pickleball because we don't see the need, A, and B, I don't feel that you've exhausted all your avenues to put pickleball somewhere. And again, taking away a field, if it's underwater, well, fix it. The idea of the facility was to put several fields together so that everyone can play in the same area. Now, where are you going to put another field? In Lot D? I mean, if you do that and you've got a plan for it and you're going to pay for it and you've got a plan, we'll put the field there and then you can switch to pickleball. I don't feel that it's smart to take fields away, especially when flag football is going over there now. And we're trying to get lacrosse established in the community. We keep running into hurdles trying to do that, but you don't have a plan that's comprehensive, and that is where the criticism is coming from. Also, the tennis courts over at the school, there's various reports on how that was misstepped with the county. We need to figure out a way to try to get those courts and use those for pickleball. I mean, it's sitting there. That would be the cheapest solution. And yeah, we may not be able to own it, but a little bit of money and we can use it for 10 or 20 years is a lot better than spending a bunch of money and at the same time taking away from the current amenities. So that's why you're getting criticized, folks. And also social media, you can post Zoom in the Facebook groups. They're private groups. There's no Chinese hackers hanging out in my private group. So that's a ridiculous comment.
Okay, thank you. Jackson?
So, Tim, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your concern and interest. Dates back to the days of putting the field together in the first place. I just want to remind you and let the community know that we invited you to apply for the Recreation Committee and you declined. I think the Recreation Committee is the place for those questions to be asked about planning, and they're asking those questions about B&D. But the first steps in B&D are what we've already authorized, which is to find out what it costs to make them usable for anything. It would be foolish of us to identify some item to go into B or D before we know if it's even a usable piece of land. And that's part of what we're trying to do. So we are moving in the direction that you're asking us for there. But I don't think you can wait until you have every piece of the puzzle fully worked out. We are going a step at a time. Had we taken that approach, you would not have gotten the soccer fields 4 years ago because we didn't know what we were going to do with any of the property besides that. So we work, I think, in a productive, progressive way. And I would encourage anyone that's interested in this process to attend the Recreation Committee meetings and to apply for membership on that committee. If you are there, that is where the first level of decision-making is occurring, and I think it's important. The other thing I want to comment on is the tennis courts at the school. I went out and met with the school board member, with the construction staff from the school district, with the principal. The courts would cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to do anything with. They are completely in disrepair. And we would not have access to the courts during every hour that the school is open or potentially open, which means that we would pay for all of that and have access to it only on weekends or in the late evenings. That's not a great decision, but it's one that the board will deal with when the contract with the school district comes up next June. So I would invite the community to weigh in as we go through that process. It's still an open question as to what will happen. And I think it's unfair to represent that what we're doing is on the basis of, and this kind of smear really bothers me, that somehow members of this board play pickleball or we're involved in it. Not a single member of this board, Tim, plays pickleball or is involved with pickleball. And I really would prefer that if you're going to make those kinds of statements, that you back them up. And if you can't make those statements with facts, then hold on to them. They belong on Facebook. they don't belong in this meeting.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Go ahead.
As far as fixing the fields, we did get $225,000 to fix the drainage, and that was with no guarantee that
Max
drainage
10%.
would be fixed.
With up to maybe a 10% improvement. I mean, it just
Up
really
to,
works.
but no guarantee that
guarantee.
there was going to be any
No,
fix, that it was going to be cured the problem.
no.
So
Yeah, I want to go back to something. I think it was the last meeting I said, and it goes back to the history. When we approved the fields, I was on the board and voted against it because it wasn't thought through 4 years ago. And a couple of you came on after next year and inherited that. It was budgeted approved at 2.8, and it ended up costing 4.7 million and $300,000 a year. We knew that one field would be usable 365 days a year and two fields would not be. I don't know that it's the majority of the year with rain, so I would disagree with my colleague across the table, but yeah, sure, there are unplayable days, and we knew that. But for the extra nearly, I don't know, $600,000-700,000 per field to put artificial turf on at that time, that was the cost at that time. We said we can afford one. So I'm not, that's why I wanted to have the two sources of funding. I'm not ready to put a big chunk of money into more artificial turf at this point. I feel the need to honor what our community said 2 years ago with the extensive and scientific survey that we did that said community center, community center, community center first.
Where's the community center being built, and what's the study on that cost? Where does that fit into the?
We have not done a study yet on a community center. We have certainly thought about 851 building expansion and stuff like that. I think we'll end up having conversations about debt, and are we willing to do that, or are we going to wait? And there's a lot of board thoughts diverse on that. But whatever we're going to do with community center is going to cost millions. We talked last meeting about shared sacrifice, and my belief here is that this creates shared sacrifice, and that we do give two fields for kids or others who want to play on them. That'll be there all the time. Pickleball gets it. You asked the question about who's playing pickleball. There's actually a lot of people playing pickleball, and there are people who are.
But not us.
None of us.
None of us play pickleball. And, you know, they just did some. They're doing classes right now for new people who want to learn the sports, and they're booking a lot of people. Pickleball is a very popular sport. So
show the. There's no proof of it. That's the problem.
Why don't you do another one? This person's already had his
there's been no proof of the pickleball though.
Had his 3 minutes.
Okay, so at some point it's judgment, and it's pretty clear to us there's a desire. Are there other people in the community who want to speak? Anybody want to raise their hand? Jeffrey, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Jeffrey Mound, 1114 Croton Place. I would just encourage you all to consider some long-term visioning with a master plan in place, so that all of these other items that keep coming up in almost every meeting have a home or a placeholder. And then think about how over the many years to follow, 10, 15 years, some of these grand visions can be implemented and put in place, not only from a location on the master plan, but from a financial perspective. How do we save up, or how do we plan for a big community center, or a fine arts center, or some of the other things that have come up over the years with different people in town. So I just encourage you to do that.
We actually agree with that statement, and we had discussions with both the Recreation Committee and the Special Events about having them take a lead on doing something like that next year. We like this approach because it leaves B&D totally open to whatever may be. Lots of ideas get floated, and everything else is pretty much open. So that was our thought process there.
Great, thank you.
And just a comment, I know I'll point to Lauren on her first day in the job. This is the sort of thing this sort of negotiation you've done in your prior work with, and you don't need to comment on that. No, but I just know you've done that, and we would welcome your leadership and expertise just with facilitating a longer term, to Jeffrey Mowen's point, a longer term planning process. So I think that's great.
I just wanted to add something just for comment's sake. We manage communities across the country. And regardless of the interest here, I will tell you that pickleball is one of the hottest subjects across the nation. Everyone's playing it, everyone's doing it, everyone wants it. So, I mean, that is a fact, and it's in all of our communities. The master plan, though, is definitely something that is definitely a very needed and smart idea.
Greg Filak?
Yeah, Greg Filak, 1445 Stickley. I will start by saying the same thing I said last meeting when this came up. I appreciate that you are trying to find a solution. There's not a perfect solution here. I certainly understand that, and I think I've hopefully conveyed that clearly in my concerns and questions and comments. What I'm still not hearing, and I don't know if it's the board's intent to go down here, is what are the numbers? What are the usage? The last time I heard pickleball largely discussed was about 2 months ago, where there was a lot of discrepancy on the numbers, and there were some comments that numbers weren't needed to articulate the need. Separately, with the multi-purpose fields, which I will continue to call them that because they are that. There is lacrosse, there is flag football, all being put on those fields. It is not just soccer. What is the usage there? Maybe you only need 2 fields. Maybe you do need that 3rd field. What I'm not hearing here, or I'm hearing very diverse answers, and I certainly appreciate David's comment of having a plan, and you inherited a bad one 4 years ago, and don't want to spend any more money on grass fields anywhere else because we got enough grass fields. And I'm hearing other board members saying we do need to look at that. And I'm hearing maybe we'll turf field too, and maybe we won't. And that's why we're breaking out the quote. So I'm confused if we're committing to spending over $100,000 on a design study that we still don't seem to have ironed out the elements going into that and the requirements and the numbers that would justify those. They still seem like there's some qualitative comments in here, not quantitative ones, to justify what's going where and how are we articulating those numbers. So I had heard for some time with this discussion that we were waiting for the new management company to come in and help do that analysis. So I guess my question I'll leave for the board, is that analysis underway? And are you going to wait for that analysis before committing to anything other than the design study that you're talking about?
The problem with numbers is you had a youth soccer program that already existed. So you have, and I've seen who comes to it. There are residents, and there are more non-residents than there are residents who play in the darn thing. So it has growth like that. You take pickleball, it does have a number of people play it. It has a number of people who are interested, and it is a popular sport. I think that's an impossible thing to argue. And to sit here and say who will actually play pickleball until we actually have pickleball courts is almost an impossible answer to do. And I'm just being honest with you, Greg. We, at the conclusion of this meeting, I think are saying we need to move forward to go out and actually get an RFP so people will tell us this is what it costs to get the pre-construction work done. So we'll end up having another meeting where we approve that it's going to cost X to do it. We'll try to work a little more on numbers between now and then, but you're asking almost the impossible because you don't have anywhere to play. It's like how many people would play baseball if you don't have a baseball field? You would have no clue, Greg. And I think you know that. And that's where I struggle with your question. You're asking people to prove the impossible.
I would also say that we're really just doing this incrementally. We're taking it a step at a time. And we're not committing to build pickleball there. We're committing to a study, an RFP, to help tell us what it's going to cost. And I agree with the idea of a master plan. I agree with all of the pieces that we're talking about. But again, we take it step by step by step. And at a certain point, we had to make a decision. We've made that decision to take the next step. Some people will like that step, some people will not. But I think that it is a reasonable next step to take. And it was a unanimous vote of this board to do that. So I think that we agree that this is the right thing to be doing. And then we'll see where we are when we get that data in. And management will have more time to, I mean, they've been here 10 days, Greg. So I think to ask them to have a study ready for us is a bit optimistic, though I know they work miracles. But we have given that direction to management. They understand it, and I am confident that they will help us figure out what to do. And that was part of my original piece and negotiation in this, was to have management's involvement. So
right.
I will continue to push for that.
So just a question going back to Susanna. When do you expect the engineering study report in our hands? Because that will be helpful, I think, to Greg's point. Was it, yeah, on lots B and D. You said that earlier, just to clarify. Was it like 8 weeks out?
I think the general talk was 30 days.
Oh, 30 days?
Yeah, but he said he should have some good progress by next week. So
they're going faster than we thought.
So we might have a draft report or draft findings by the end of next week. Is that what you just said?
he's going to give us his progress on there, on how much he's done.
Not by the end of next week. I think
No,
we need to hold
that's
out on
too
30
soon.
days. She's saying she'll have a progress report next
Oh,
week.
progress
Yeah.
report. I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm thinking,
So
I'm thinking,
a month.
I'm thinking Christmas is what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
That's okay. Because that will also be helpful into that process.
Along the same lines, and how about with Albert? When did he?
I don't have a date on that yet.
Okay. Just
It
curious.
seemed like he was going to be able to move pretty quickly from his letter.
Probably 30 days on that as well, I would think. at least.
Okay, but we are going to have Susanna reach out to Armco and Carlton to ask them to come back with a proposal to us, what they'll need to do a design for us. So we're going out with an RFP. And I know that the pickleball task force had drafted something which is going to have to be revised because it was originally done on B&D. So get that revised so that we have that, so that we can go forward with the conversation. Board agree?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And Brian, just thank you for answering that. And again, my comments are not against pickleball or for soccer. It's more expectation setting, I think, on my end, and certainly several people in the community, is what are those trigger points, or are we committed on this path? And I've heard divergent stories as to where it's going, whether or not we're doing additional studies, if we're basing on metrics, or if we're going with, hey, we're going to do this. I'm not sure it's clear that path forward. That's what my question was at. So yeah,
go ahead.
No, I understand we're doing the study now, but I think it's after that, are we then kind of pot committed that we're moving forward with that? And I know the answer is going to be no, because we're going to look at the study, but is there any other data points going into this analysis, or is it just going to be whatever the price comes out and it's either yes or no based on the price? I'm not sure I'm hearing what the decision points are from now till then. And okay, I appreciate, yeah.
Let me try to be very specific. Right now, we get together the package to go out and ask these two companies for an RFP. That RFP will come back and say, this is what it's going to cost to do the pre-construction design. And I'm expecting that to come back and say 100, 125,000, something like that. So it's real money. We'll have a board meeting, obviously. I think it's impossible to sit here and tell you exactly how many people are going to play pickleball when we don't even have a quarter of facility today to measure against. I know there's interest, and I know there are beginners classes and stuff like that. I think if we as a board are going to end up coming down to a board meeting in a not too distant future where we're going to say, okay, if we're willing to spend $100,000 to $125,000, this is going to end up being the decision, unless the cost comes back at $3 million or some ridiculous number. And I want to be very clear here. I think more of the cost is going to be for putting turf on field 2 than is pickleball. We're doing this, we believe, for the value of the kids in the community. Willing to take total heat on that, but that's really where the thought process is at. David's not excited about the idea. He's been very clear from the beginning, but I think with 3 or 4 votes anyway that would say, yes, if we're going to go down this path, we got to do turf to do pickleball. And then we've made a decision here, and we've left B&D totally open. I would love very much to see the B&D things, but there are so many other things the community wants. I think B&D will have more needs than space if we don't put pickleball on. And I understand we're utilizing space, and it's just, we're limited in what we have in town here. So I'm trying to be as frank as I can. Greg.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Tom Holt.
Yes. Hi, Tom Hall, 1204 Roycroft. So far, everything that I've heard, I just want to express just as a neutral resident. I don't play pickleball. I don't play any lawn sports. I just like the plan, and I think it's well thought out so far. So I fully support it as a resident. But just to check my understanding of what I think I've heard so far, I understand the part about field 1 and 2, but I also heard you say that you're going to do an engineering study on B and D. And what is the purpose of that study? It's just for clarification.
Okay, the purpose of the study on B and D was always going to be done regardless of the pickleball decision on field 1, if that should that move forward, because we have a number of drainage concerns and stuff like that with B and D. We really need to understand what can we do on that space? How would we have to change the drainage? How much of a retention pond is required on D and stuff like that? We keep coming up with more and more conversations where people have an idea, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that. And we've never had a civil engineering study that says, okay, this is really what you could do. This is, how much of lot D you would lose for a required retention pond. We've already got B built out a little. Can you change it at all? Or is it already maxed out? We need facts so that we can even make a plan for the future, whether it could be a building, whether it would be parking. There's certainly arguments people want parking out there, with this basketball court, anything else. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. I'm going to close that part of the conversation. Well, Gerald Barr, go ahead, Gerald.
Actually, hello, it's Eileen Barr, 1138 Mosaic Drive. Yeah. To address the idea that the synthetic turf, a couple of years ago, prior to the original plan being approved by the board, the one that went for the 2.9 million, there were a number of meetings held by both the Park and Rec Committee and the board to discuss putting artificial turf on the other 2 fields. And what was presented at the time was that the other fields, if we left them grass, this is my memory of it, other people may remember it differently, would not be as playable, but certainly would be adequate. I think the discussion would have been very different if perhaps some of the people who were doing the planning at the time had said, if you do not put artificial turf on this field, then you really are not going to be able to play on it. So what was presented to the board at the very last minute before an election was really a very bare bones plan with only 1 synthetic turf. It's sad that there really wasn't some honesty. Welcome to the wonderful management. They sound very professional, and hopefully these are the kinds of things that we can avoid in the future. If it had just been said, this is your choice. You're either going to have an unplayable field or you need a synthetic turf. So I think if you look at it that way, now having to go back and redo it now that we have the playing experience is perhaps something we should have seen from the very beginning and dealt with from the beginning, just like putting the bathrooms. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I'm closing it now. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's go to action item number 3, which is locking mailboxes. But Kevin was our coordinator.
I actually have been texting with Kevin about this.
Okay. I also have Jessica here tonight, so she can.
And that's what he said.
Yeah. Is that what
Go for it.
Okay, Jessica, here's a picture up here of what they've been
Can
talking
you
about.
blow that thing up, Patrick?
I'll let Jessica take over.
You mean make it bigger, right?
Thank you. Yes. So I hope I do Kevin some justice here. He had wanted to speak on this topic, but this is a locking mailbox option. It's called so it's a locking insert. It's not physically changing the exterior of the mailbox. with a small exception that I'll talk a little bit about later. This is a case that fits within the mailbox, and it does vary in size depending on the dimensions of the mailbox. They provide like small, medium, large, depending on what you're ordering, and it would fit into the mailbox. The only modification that happens to this mailbox is that there's a hole drilled into the bottom of it to insert a bolt that kind of keeps that in place. There's a small insert that kind of is angled down, so you can't really pull the mail out. That's the intention anyways. And so there's enough space for the USPS to insert the mail through there, yet, you know, not enough for someone to insert their hand and pull anything out. This is the option that ARC, I guess I should backtrack, I apologize. We had discussed this at the ARC meeting as a topic of discussion last month. And so we had presented some options for mailboxes that have locking capabilities. Different mailbox options were presented, and there were some posts that weren't exactly in line with ours post and bracket standard. And so we thought that this was probably the best fit for Celebration. And so that's why we're presenting it to the board as an option. I have been in contact with USPS, and they say that, you know, this option is perfectly suitable for any mailbox here in town. I've recently learned, and I'm sorry that I did not provide it, but I just want the community to be aware that there's also a Ring device that's like a motion sensor and can advise you when your mailbox is opened. And, you know, that for someone who works at home and can just pop out as soon as that notification comes in, that would be really useful.
So this is ARC's recommendation. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
And you would you have to drill a hole in, or to secure it at the bottom?
You do. You have to drill a hole at the bottom, and it gives you the dimensions specifically that you need, and you would insert that nut and bolt to hold it in place.
Okay. Has anybody tested one of these and it works well?
We have not tested it here in the community. I think owners really were reaching out just for some options that they could have. And I think this is, you know, with your approval of this option, I'd probably work with JR to get a notice out to the community and advise them of this option.
So what would happen? This is approved by ARC. So it becomes like a standard item, and a resident could have one of these, pay for it and have it delivered and have themselves install it?
Yes, because it's not affecting the outside of the mailbox. It's just the inside.
And the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's basically saying ARC and management has done the research, and this is a viable one that meets our standards.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what the cost is, Jessica?
It's there.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yes, it varies on the size of it. And it's, I think it's not very cheap. I think I saw $70 or something of that sort.
$79 and $99.
$79 and $99 based on size.
Okay.
And to Brian's point, that's a good comment. I mean, I suppose we could see if there's any homeowners willing to be that first one to kind of get it in there. And then maybe we're certain that it is a commendable option for other residents of the community. But I think owners just really want to be aware of what their options are at this point.
So basically it goes inside the existing mailbox and gets bolted in there. And so it's invisible to sight.
Right.
Correct.
So some residents may already have this, and since it's not visible, nobody would know.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does the mail person get the mail in the box if it's locked?
There's a hole
on the front door and just slides in that gap there.
There's a gap.
So you go right over the top.
Lid. Yeah, they open the lid, Celia, and there's a box that has a slit.
Okay.
So what would happen if someone, just a question here, because sometimes you'll get checks delivered or something like that. If you have a bigger item, they would give you a notification. You'd have to go to the post office.
So that's what I was waiting to hear from the post office. I've actually dropped in there a couple of times, and I'm trying to get a hold of the person that I can get that information from. I want to know, would they leave the packages at the front door if it's not fitting in there? Or are they going to leave a notification to pick it up at the post office? I don't have that information, and I'm waiting for confirmation of that.
I think that would depend on the nature of the home. Like in my home, we have a front porch, and they'll bring something that doesn't fit in the mailbox
Putting
up to
this
the
in the
mailbox.
mailbox.
No.
Putting this in the
So they
mailbox
do
is not gonna
catalogs.
make any difference of how they deliver it.
That's
if
up to
it's-
them.
Yeah.
That's just up to them. That's a PO thing.
Okay, let me make a suggestion. This seems like a very reasonable, wonderful solution. I would prefer not to approve it tonight because I'd like Jessica to answer. If we're going to send out a notification to the community, let's make sure that we can write something that we've cleared in advance that says, you know, here's how it would work, here's how it would get applied, here's where you can buy it from, here's an example of what it might cost, and you know, here's what the post office has told us. So I'd like to be able, I'm fine with the solution, providing we can tell the rest of the story around it. Does any board member disagree with that?
I'd like to see it really tested by somebody who's affected by this, because I was looking at this little slot and I'm thinking, where would they put like a magazine? But then I see that there's an opening above the thing where you could like roll up a bit, you know, you could roll up the thing and put it on the top, but anything that looks important would go in that little slot. You know, but if you have someone who's actually using it, then they would be able to come back and tell you, yeah, it looks like it works, but here's the problems that I had with it before you recommend it to everybody.
Okay, Jessica, I know my wife wants one, so you and I will coordinate outside of this meeting and I'll buy one and I'll become the guinea pig.
Yay!
The only thing I would add to
Brian Kensel.
Okay, the only thing I'd add to Brian's point, if we're gonna do this, Jessica, you said something you just learned about a ring sensor. So if we're going to do a notice to the community about security of mail and mailboxes, let's bundle it with whatever else we learn or ARC learns.
And how will that affect the exterior of the box, if at all?
Just no ring sensor would just be, hey, your mail has arrived today.
Well, I know, but there's got to be something that tells it that.
There's an 80.
Let her gather some information. And
okay,
share
so Jessica, you have your marching orders, right?
I do. Thank you.
The solution looks like a very good one. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, motion to renew a 1-year contract with the Celebration Foundation, Thriving in Place, as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
David seconds. Any conversation?
I'd like to make a suggestion on this. I know we talked about this during budget season, and my comments on this will also apply to number 5. But this is with the Celebration Foundation, that when Celebration was set up, there were 3 major leadership entities. There's government, there's governance, and there's other leadership. And the government is CCDD, we're governance, and the foundation is major community leadership. That was set up intentionally. Celebration Foundation has been a great partner with us over the years, continues to grow. We have a liaison to them to us, and same with CCDD. With this particular proposal, which is Thriving, 100% of those in Thriving are Celebration residents. We all pay our HOA dues. And so I make the argument and I make a motion within the motion to remove on this one, which is the Thriving one, in Exhibit A, remove items 1 and 6, which talk about fees. Basically what that does, it's an argument in principle that the foundation, because of their leadership role in the community and a good, healthy partnership, should pay no fees for use of CROA facilities. The other piece that's noted in, I think it's actually in the lifelong proposals, all the equipment they paid for. When Stetson closed that facility and Lifelong moved here, part of the agreement was they would buy equipment like the screen we are using here and computers and microphones. I think they bought 3 big screens, and that inventory is on the next action item. So that is now CROA equipment, but that was part of the deal. They would buy the equipment and then donate it to CROA so that they could have this facility. So my proposal, the motion that I'll make within the motion and see if there's a second and see if it passes, is to remove in this particular item, the cost items in Exhibit A, items 1 and 6, I think are the cost.
1 and 6?
Yeah.
Do we have a second for conversation?
Yeah, I'd second that.
Okay, conversation.
I agree with David. I think that there are so many things that the foundation brings to us, and these programs have real intrinsic worth, and there's no real reason to be charging the foundation. We're really charging ourselves in a sense. And I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to do that. I'd like to foster a better relationship with the foundation going forward into the next generation 2.0 of celebration. I think this is a symbolic way of doing it. It's a de minimis number.
It's not much money to us anyway.
How much management time do we have?
Setting up rules.
Nikki told us tonight that there was virtually none.
So if we do this, we're talking about peanuts.
Yes.
That's a specific question I'm asking.
Yeah. The $5 per member per year is.
No, I don't care about that. I'm just asking about the $38.50. If that really amounts to any money.
It's setting up.
On the call.
Nikki, are you on here tonight?
But even the $5 per member, I think that it hovers around 85 members at $5 a piece is nothing.
It's nothing.
Yeah, I'm just asking Nikki, do we spend a lot of time setting stuff up for these or not?
So specifically with Thriving in Place, they only utilize our facility once a week on Fridays. So setup time, it'll take roughly an hour of staff time. But they have not utilized the activities room since 2019.
So it's an hour a week.
It's to me, it's to Jackson's point. It's foster a better relationship. So there's a motion within a motion.
Well, I just amended the motion to
we got a second.
approve without items 1 and 6.
Call the vote. Jackson, yes or no?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Celia?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
I'm outvoted. I don't even care. Okay, done.
All right.
Okay, lifelong learning. Okay, next item, motion to renew the 1-year contract with Celebration Lifelong as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
I'll make that motion, and within that motion and the service agreement, it would be deleting
Same you said before.
Well, it's items specifically in the service agreements, items 3A, C, and D. So that would be the motion. So it's approving it, and then that one's in the lifelongs. Is it the money items are in items 3A, C, and D.
Wait a minute.
Exhibit A?
I think what you mean, David, is Exhibit A.
Exhibit A. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah.
Number 13.
I'm sorry.
I see 3.
I don't see the A and B.
Wait a minute.
These are, it should be Exhibit A, item 3 and
13.
Yeah, 3 and 13.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Call the vote. Celia?
Aye.
David?
Yeah. Aye.
Yes. Cindy?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Okay, done.
And thanks to the foundation.
Yes. Thank you for the foundation for all that they do.
Okay, item 6. Motion to renew the 1-year contract with Celebration Cyclones as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
So moved.
Second.
David, second. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward here. Any comments from the board?
The only comment I'd make, it's not about this, but any contract, I'm glad to see the addition there on all of these with the COVID concerns. And I wonder, just moving forward, do we want to frame it differently? Something to think about. So it's not just COVID, but there may be, they're going to comply with other health and safety initiatives of the board and management. I'm just think about that as it just jumped out at me. I was glad to see it, but who knows where 2022 is going to be and so forth. It's not just COVID.
Okay.
But there may be other health and safety things. Just think about that. And that may be an attorney thing too, how that gets worded.
Okay. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got it. Item number 7. Celebration Zumba. Motion to renew the 1-year contract with Celebration Zumba as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments from the board? Other than David's
No,
previous?
same as before.
Call the vote. All in favor? All in favor. Sorry.
Aye. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian. Let's go the same speed on number 8.
All right. The insurance renewal. So here, a motion to approve the proposed CJC insurance renewal for the 2021-22 policy year in the amount of $199,384.38 through Seal Insurance Company. It's a CJC operating expenditure. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, what I would like,
Very quickly.
go ahead.
Do we have the authority to do this for CJC, or are we just voting to approve our
It's
portion
only,
of it?
it's our portion of it.
Yeah.
So what I'd like, and they've got their meeting next week, what I'd like to say is
Coming up. Yeah.
CJC, so it's 75-25, and then ours, we bill them a little bit more than 25,000 to Artisan Park. So we're really, just so people are aware of that, and because they've got their own clubhouse in that. So from a CROA perspective, the expense last year, I think, was 168 or something like that. We thought we were going to have a much bigger increase, and we ended up with an increase of 2%. So it came out very well for us. Same company, same limits. So I think we, being honest, came out darn well and better than expected.
Oh, yeah, it's like,
Any other comments from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Perfect. Okay, motion to approve the service area 2022 budgets. Blue Sage Blue Sage Townhomes 2022 budget with gross revenues and expenditures of $22,943 and a monthly assessment of $375.56, a 10% increase from 2021. Spring Lake Townhomes 2022 budget with gross revenues and expenditures of $179,174 and a monthly assessment of $263.15, a 5% increase from 2021. And Spring Lake Gardens budget with gross revenues and expenditures of $211,893 and a monthly assessment of $111.27, a 3% increase from 2021. Can I have the motion?
I move to approve all three.
Second?
I'll second.
Perfect. Cindy, since you were the coordinator, any comments here of relevance for the group?
not really. I think Suzanne and I made a great team. We didn't get much, we had questions from 2 or 3 of the service areas, but beyond that, everybody understood what we were doing and why, and right?
Yes.
There you go.
I think that one of the things that, as Ariel gets in and as Lauren starts to come into this, as we look at service areas, we've talked about where we are. And I know that we have talked about the idea of reserve studies and looking at these reserve studies. I really hope that in directing the engineers doing the reserve studies, that we look at each service area uniquely. That is not to simply say, here's a service area and it's got 10 roofs and we're just going to multiply everything times 10, but to look at the actual locations, because as you discovered, Blue Sage had a very different set of concerns than other service areas might have. And I think that we have really been operating on data that's probably not as good as we'd like it to be in terms of those reserve studies. And I think the owners in these service areas deserve to know what the real lifespan is of the particular work that's been done on their homes, particularly as we're coming into that 15, 20, 25-year period where there's going to be, I think, more work that's required just because of the age of the buildings.
Well,
Yes.
maybe what we really need to do is make sure also that when we do the reserve study, which I think we had directed Susanna to start moving forward with, that is with each of these service areas, we need to almost make sure. Right now, we're getting an aggregate report, but we need to make sure that each service area gets some feedback.
Yeah, and that was,
even if it costs us a little more money,
Yeah.
make sure they get more valuable feedback.
yeah, that was a couple of folks brought that point up, that they would like to be able to look at it and actually see, what's scheduled for each year as it goes on. So.
Right. So I think we're probably changing the definition a little of what we want from the thing to make sure that we're actually getting a report where they looked at a service area for the 19 buildings here or the 6 buildings here or something like that.
And every time they're updating this, are they actually getting on-site visits or are they?
What
Yes.
has happened is we have used the same firm every 3 years for about 6 times in a row. They're well reputable, and they've grown a lot in quality of knowing what they had looked at before and having good notes. They come out for a whole week. So they look exhaustively at a lot of stuff. It is not a process where somebody flies a drone overhead and says, I've seen the building. So they actually do physical inspection pretty carefully. So it's actually a pretty interesting process, professionally done.
Did you have a chance, Ariel, to work with any of those reserve studies when you were with CCDD?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
work with reserve advisors.
That's who we use.
Yeah.
And other companies as well.
Okay, so you've got some expertise in how to guide and work through that process.
Yes, I have done. I've been the head of the research studies. I've been the point of contact for them with the city.
Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus.
Okay. All in favor of approving these three budgets?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, item number 10, motion to approve playground mulch installed at 3 CROA parks by New Leaf Property Services in the amount of $8,745.
So moved.
Second.
Susanna, any comments here?
I thought I explained it pretty good in the cover sheet, but
You did a good job there.
it's that's why I do those for y'all, so you understand ahead of time. But it's playground mulch for the playground. You need every year. Pardon me?
We get one bid specifically versus 3 here because it's somebody who's already doing all the work, and that's why we do it that way, because it's more efficient. Correct?
And it's under 10,000. Yes.
Perfect. All right. Any comments from the board?
Is this something we do? I mean, like I just
Yearly.
don't remember this from last year or year before.
It should be yearly.
It's pretty yearly. Okay, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Okay, number 11, motion to approve the plant replacement in the CROA parks by Yellowstone Landscape in the amount of $3,687.00.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I've been the current operations manager, and someone made a joke that now I've done everything in the company. But so looking at especially coming up with Founders Day, looking at Lakeside and also Founders, and I remember doing a walk with Yellowstone back in the spring. Actually, you had mentioned, Jackson, how there's a lot of areas in the community that need some landscape attention. And so I picked those two to start with. We could get them done pretty quickly. And there was just a lot of ground cover that needed to be replaced, a lot of big mulch areas. It just, we need to keep our aesthetics for the parks pristine as possible. And so Yellowstone is our contractor. They gave us those quotes, which are pretty reasonable to me, considering how much area they were covering. So I put that forward.
I have no issue with anything here other than it really just seems to have 3,687 down to the board is not efficient. So I really think.
Well, it's a reserve item. So anything out of reserves gets approved by the board.
I understand.
Can it go to a consent agenda?
But we're holding things up. So Lauren, let's really think about a new, working with the others. Let's think about re-challenging what's got to come to the
I
board.
will. I'm just going to point out that that's in the Florida statutes though.
Okay, but
right,
maybe
there's nothing that would keep us from putting that into a consent agenda where we just hit it and go.
Sure.
Because I think Brian's point is we don't want you waiting to get this work done for us.
I didn't.
And I really just don't care about $3,687. I mean,
Right,
I'm not trying to waste money,
Right.
but I'm just saying.
You're saying you
then
don't
somebody come up
brought you
once and say, we're going to need to
10,000
spend
or less.
50,000 out of replacement reserves to do this for the following 14 parks. Go with God. So I'd like to see a different approach.
Okay.
Just
Good.
Unless somebody disagrees.
Agreed.
All right, call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 12, update on Island Village building turnover. What I'd like to do, just one really quick comment before we go to this, is we have update on Grand Manor, update on amenity improvement projects. Somewhere up front, we just need to have a regular Island Village item. And I think I'd like to have them in the action items so they don't get lost when people look at the agendas.
Right.
But up front, we just know we're going to clip off 2 or 3 things in Island Village ought to be there. And who's going to provide the update on Island Village?
I can do that.
And then I'll do an update on behalf of the designated.
Okay, so
members.
just talking about the turnover, the board agreed that for when the buildings get turned over, proposed from Mattamy Homes, that we would have an engineer and CROA's landscape contractor go out there along with a management representative, which was myself. All of us went out there. There was 2 buildings that they were proposing to turn over. We all met out there. They had a drone. They looked at the roof. The engineer looked at railings, stability, structural. I looked at aesthetics. New Leaf was with me, who will be doing the landscape, looked at landscape irrigation. We
Yeah.
found multiple items. There was 2 reports, one on each building from the engineer and an overall report from the landscaper. And then I added some additional items and I sent that within the 10 days and told them that CROA would not be accepting those 2 buildings at this time.
Did you get a response back?
No.
So just, I think we should clarify for the public what's going on here. We reached an agreement with the developer that as they completed each group of multifamily homes, each building, that they would have a 10-day period to submit to us as CROA to take over and then take responsibility for the exterior maintenance, the landscaping, irrigation, repairs, and so on. It was our belief as a board, based on the experience at Spring Lake, that we needed to be fairly rigorous in this inspection because you're taking on the property and therefore you're taking on the responsibility that goes with it. And so we drew that into the supplemental agreement, and that was part of the discussion. Now, David's going to talk about a different part of the supplement in a minute, but this part will be ongoing. As each building gets completed, it gets turned over. So one of the interesting things to me in reading the report was how thorough a job they did.
Yes.
How thorough a job you did, Susanna, and how glad I am that we did this report, because I would not have wanted to take over that building given the things that we saw that were missing, right? And the residents wouldn't want that either. So I'm hopeful that Mattamy will respond enthusiastically and will say, you're right, we want to change these things and make it perfect because we believe in the best product we can produce. We'll see what happens.
Although having seen the report, I mean, the building's not going to fall down.
It is not.
But there are certain cosmetic structural things which make it get to 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's standard when you do any kind of walk like that. I mean, there's dead plants, the punch list replaces dead plants.
It's a punch list.
Do that,
it is. Yeah.
And they fix them and then you'll accept the turnover.
Yeah. So that's why I say, I think that these are things that they can respond to and we have a positive relationship and do that. And this will be the process that we go through for years.
Yeah.
So it's good to set those standards. I think as Mattamy learns what our standards are, they'll be able to do their own punch list before they turn it over to us. So I'm not surprised that this one probably
that is the goal, right? The first one's kind of a big list. And then as they kind of see what we're looking at, then they hit it ahead of time. So then we come there, hopefully there's not that many items on the next ones.
Yeah.
And this is just for the service area townhome buildings, to be clear.
So just to clarify that, this is like a building that has like 4 townhomes in it. And so then when it gets turned over to us, we maintain the exterior. The other piece is that this inspection was not of the entire structure, it's of the exterior.
Yeah, there was no inspections inside.
That's correct. So this is not about the structure. This is about the roof. This is about stucco, flashing, landscaping. It's exterior, it's appearance.
The cosmetic.
Yeah, although roofing and flashing is more than cosmetics.
The association would be
responsible. But we're responsible for that. We'll replace the roof as it ages out. So so great job with orchestrating that. And these will be coming online. I mean, there's 2 different buildings that we've just done that inspection on, and there's more as they finish out phase 1 and then the 2 future phases.
Any other comments on either building?
Yeah, so I have a separate thing. That was the one supplement that has been approved by the board. The other supplement that was submitted back in December, maybe?
Originally, yes.
Originally, December, January, was called the recreational supplement. So we met, Kevin and Jackson and I met with 2 Mattamy representatives last week on behalf of the board, knowing that any decision has to go back to the board. And so we're talking about the facilities, and we're talking about, I guess there's 2 parts. There's their public areas, and already they have a muse, which is just grass in front of the 2 model homes right now. There will be other muse locations There'll be other parks that get built. So they want to turn it over to us. I mean, the Muse is ready, and we said no. We're talking about the standard that it's going to be. The thing on the table was 90% build out in phase one. We agreed that we could do it by phase, not by the completion of all 3 phases, but by the end of phase one, roughly 90%. They're taking that back. We're proposing a date rather than a number when we would start to take things over. The other piece there we're talking about is, and there's a future meeting coming up with Streetlights, who owns the land and is building the apartments, 300 units, and is building the amenity building and the pool area. The amenity building next to the pool will be turned over to us, and only when it's ready. So we basically put it back in Madamy's court in terms of what would be the turnover date that would be reasonable, that we would start taking care of the Muse. We don't want to go out there and just take care of a Muse right now. That's not reasonable at all. And so now it's in their court, and then the Streetlights people have asked for a separate meeting, and we wrote them back yesterday and haven't heard back from them in terms of when we meet to them about whatever their agenda is and learning their timetable. I think it's my understanding in terms of that the according to Madamy, that Streetlights is due to turn over the pool and amenity or the whole complex. Was it 16 or 18 months after contract? So they're looking at early next summer.
Not gonna happen.
Having driven out there about 2 days ago, I can't imagine them opening up that whole area first thing summer. So we're looking at a date probably in 2023 when we would then take responsibility.
But we've got you, Kevin, Jackson actively working with that.
We are actually working with Madamy and Streetlights, and we'll inform you, but that's the update.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to item 13. Motion to approve proceeding with July 4th, 2022 fireworks subject to completion of a memorandum of understanding. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Celia, second. Okay, so let me provide a little background for the community. We did not have, in 2019, we had fireworks at the 4th of July. Great evening, went very well. From a perspective of a budget, we had revenues of about $34,500 and expenses of about $68,000, which includes all security and stuff like that. Lexan was the fireworks provider. They funded the fireworks component of the piece, which was about 29,000. And Lexan is finalizing the budget. They have offered to do a 4th of July fireworks purchase, which would require us to come up with the other 30,000 or so to do fireworks at the 4th of July. And the big question is, we CROA ate about 2,700 in the COVID year when everything broke down. So from a board perspective, question for the board is, are we interested in doing this? And the motion is to do it subject to a memo of understanding, which I think basically we would have management work on with Jackson and Kevin so that we can get it done. Board comments?
Quick couple questions. Memorandum of understanding would be with Lexan.
With Lexan, okay. Yes, as regards to fireworks.
So you said the budget of a few years ago was $68,000. That was for 4th of July celebration,
right?
Correct. Which included entertainment and various things. Is that correct, JR?
Yes,
that
also includes.
Yeah. So this MOU is whatever we would decide to do. Well, you and the other management, and then the Special Events Committee would be working on what would a 4th of July celebration look like. This MOU is simply about if there's going to be fireworks and Lexan is going to fund them. That's the MOU on that?
That is exactly what we're talking about. The MOU relates to the fireworks component only.
Just the firework component, and then you figure out, do you
really
need another?
Relates to if COVID happens again or something else like it, how's this going to work?
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we appreciate Lexan doing this. I mean, let's be clear. They don't have to do it. I appreciate that they do it. I think they should deserve credit for doing it. I understand that things got a little wonky. That's a legal term last year. But here we are, and I think it makes good sense to work together and to take advantage of their willingness to do this. It's good for them, obviously, as well, and the downtown merchants. I think it's important for us to support our downtown. 4th of July is an opportunity to do that. So we can craft a memorandum of understanding that, you know, now we have an executive director that can look at it too. And it will, I think, make the process a little smoother, and we can be assured that we will get to a fair result.
And from an expense revenue perspective, again, 19 numbers, we had 34,000 in revenue, 68 expense. So it was about 34,000 of expense to us. We will make a decision as time passes in 2022, if that's CCS versus CROA expense, or maybe partially, but we've got time to do that as we go through a budget. I do think we have to have a budget meeting for CCS probably in December. Suzanne and I've talked about that. So
yes,
that might be when we do it, but
so CROA ate the $2,700 because the event was canceled. And in that document, that the memo of understanding from before, it said that if this was canceled for any reason, that would be CROA's responsibility. Is that correct? That's why we got.
I don't think there was a memo of understanding.
there was a memo.
Yes, there was. I read
there was
it.
a memo of understanding. It was not.
Well, that's what I understood.
It clearly, no, it clearly said that Flexen paid for those, and then as everything went wrong, and then there were movement things, and it got convoluted. We wrote a check for 2,700. New Jersey Fireworks cashed it. We just said we'll move on.
Okay.
So,
but like I said, I read there's something that stuck in my head about that. If there was canceled for any reason, CROA would either. So moving on. So maybe that new document. Well, first of all, do we know if we're buying from the same people? Fireworks?
I'm sure we are, because we're using it for Founders Day this weekend.
Well, maybe they would. I mean, that was an act of God, that COVID thing. That had nothing to do with us saying, yeah, we decided we didn't want to have it this year.
They were entitled to $13,700, and they took $2,700. We're not asking them for a penny. They were nice.
Okay, all right.
I mean, they got us a great deal. I want to be honest.
I think I remember seeing a comment from somebody that said something negative about the whole deal because we had to pay 21.
Well,
and I don't have a problem with that.
That's not a reason to not go forward.
No, I'm just getting clear because I wasn't part of that.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right. We call a vote. Does the board, yes or no? I'm going to do it in vote. Jackson, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Celia. Yes. Okay, so
it's another one of those good relationships to build stronger moving forward.
And it's for the residents.
Okay, so
and it's for the residents.
So
yeah.
JR, you can tell Mike that did what we're going to do, and I agree it needs to be Lauren and Jackson quickly getting memo of understanding stuff going to go. Okay, fair enough. Motion to approve a certain number of non-compliance items. Six non-compliance items.
Second.
Any comments from anybody?
I have a question, and it's kind of a wonky technical question. Wonky again. It's the word of the night. I'm in CROA in the board member portal. Is there a place in the portal where I can see these non-compliance items in real time? That is, I know there's something called violation enforcement in my portal, but I'm wondering if there's a place where as a board member, we can jump in, see these rather than being in print here and not having the history. Because you recall that a part of what we wanted to know on some of these last board meeting was there was a history behind them, and this should start to give it to us. If you don't have the answer, could we get an answer?
Yes, and there's definitely, there's a report that you can pull for everything. Yeah. I don't know what non-compliance items are actually being voted on tonight.
Okay.
But yes.
But theoretically, going forward, we would be able to see them and we could pull them up in the portal while we're talking at the board meeting. If they've already
been entered in, yes.
And see what's going on. So could I just ask you or whomever to run that down and let us know kind of a step-by-step how we would get at that?
Well, but I think we're talking about two different, these things are different than what we were asking for additional information on. Those were the S9s last time.
Well, it's a little bit of both. It starts with this and then we go to the
you want to see if there's one place.
Well, but these are updated the day of the meeting, aren't they?
Right. Yes. That's why I want them in the portal. Because in the portal, I can see the update instead of having to do this paper report.
Basically, he's wanting to see the whole paperwork flow through what started, what left, what
Right.
got eliminated so that it flows online. I think
Oh,
is what-
Jackson, I would like to clarify one thing. You can definitely look at these properties and see the history. What you won't see is the letter that's going to result after this meeting.
No, I got that.
Okay. All right. Just
I
want to
didn't
make sure.
expect you to be, Karnak. I just wanted to see the history leading up and giving me where we are at this moment, right?
Right.
Because sometimes it
today.
feels like we're operating in the blind on this stuff. And if you don't have personal institutional knowledge of it, you're just like, well, I don't know, what is that about? Right?
Let me tell you, though, explain one thing that is going to be a little bit of a hiccup that is not going to be smooth for you in the board meeting, is that when you're looking at the list that she's providing you, it's already compiled into a report. So if you're looking at this in the board portal, you would have to search each individual name between all the
I
homes.
wouldn't be able to get a report that just gives this to me. I couldn't personalize my.
No, you're not going to be able to pull that report, but she can pull that report for you. But you're not going to be able to do that in the board meeting based on what she's given you.
Because
You're
they
gonna
go out there in
All
the
right, so
property.
for the purpose of this meeting,
Yes.
that's the question.
Okay.
Just figure it out. He wants more than I want. So just
Yes.
figure it out and tell me what I can do.
I
wanna
want,
call the
well,
vote.
he wants numbers. That's
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, we're gonna go to board comments. Jackson, any board comments?
a couple. First of all, I want to echo what David and others have said about my enthusiasm for the future and my appreciation for the stellar work that's been done. JR, Susanna, Patrick, Nikki, Jessica, your whole team. You've been amazing. And I'm so excited to see where we go. So thank you for all of that. As we go to Founders Day weekend, it is the opportunity to reset a lot of buttons. We have a new executive director, we have a new management company, we have a new approach to what we're doing. I am more excited about the community today than I have been in 25 years. And I mean that sincerely. We have an extraordinary opportunity in front of us. And I am very grateful that we are all in that position. I would also say that one of the things that we have done that I think is important is that we have always recognized the value of our founders and the history that they have brought to this community. On Saturday afternoon, we have a gathering of people who are part of the original 300 founders of this community, the Keepers of the Flame. We have a meeting and having light refreshments after the town photo and before the events of the night. And we're really excited about that. If you are listening or watching and you are one of those Main Village founders or you taught at the school in the first year, I invite you to reach out and contact anyone else you know that's a founder, and we will give you the information about this event. But I'm also very excited that Grand Manners is a sponsor of the event. Kim Hawk Realty is a sponsor of the event. Celebration Bar Review is a sponsor of the event. And we're very excited to bring all those folks together, have an opportunity to reminisce. No one will be allowed to bring knives and swords into the event, just because that's who we were. And but it should be a fun time. So I'm looking forward to Founders Day and everything that goes on, but that's a little extra, what we say, lagniappe that we get.
It's a little extra what?
Lagniappe, a little extra. So
Land, yeah.
lagniappe, there you go.
He's full of.
Cindy, any board comments?
No, I'm looking forward to this weekend, and I hope that those of us that are on the board can get a picture taken together, because I think it's a monumental thing.
Well, we can do that at the parade.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, I was thinking more of a real, like not a formal picture, but
Like a nice photo.
yeah, not, just, when Jackson's looking this way and I'm looking that way, and he's golfing.
So whomever the photographer is, maybe do a separate picture.
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that would be.
That's a good idea.
Nice.
Celia, any comments? Ada?
Of course.
Wow.
I echo Jackson's sentiments about welcome to Grand Manners and Lauren and Ariel. And then I know we have in the celebration news, JR has had ads out. We have ads on the Friday Flash, all the various events. So I look forward to those. We don't need to reiterate to them today. And I think the rain today gets it out of the system. So I hope that will be true. Board president. But just two other comments about things that have happened in just the last 5 days. I had the opportunity to learn about something I hadn't heard about before, but it's a memorial service every year at our own memorial garden. And it's a CROA facility. It's on the way to Artisan, and CROA owns it. We maintain it. The garden club makes it even prettier with various things. And then the foundation does tiles for people. But there was a little service, a little ceremony, I should say, with live music on Saturday morning. It was about 45 minutes. It was lovely. I'll send pictures separately. I'm just waiting for the time. I'll do it through the president because there's a lot of upkeep that needs to be done. Frankly, it's embarrassing what it looks like.
Oh,
that's
where you were going with this.
It's sad what it looks like. On a more positive note, I think it was yesterday that the Celebration Foundation had a lecture. I did not hear it. Jeffrey Mowen spoke about, and it was called Celebration and Beyond, 25 years, Celebration and Beyond. I asked them, knowing that I couldn't make it, that they would tape it. I do understand that it's going to be available. And I think it's something that would be very helpful to, particularly for Grand Manor staff, to listen to at least one person's view of what was in the past. I know I've heard Jeffrey and Floyd McCollum talk and some others in the lifelong classes about the history of celebration, which is very rich, very powerful, and gives a whole different perspective about the community that we're in today, 25 years after its founding. So I've reached out to Kathleen to say, when might it be available? Is it something that maybe we can link to on our website or wherever it's hosted? Because it may be something that would be very, I think it would be something any resident would be interested in seeing if they can share that publicly. So just wanted to highlight, again, some great things that the foundation is doing. And of course, as your liaison to the foundation, I hear about some of these things, and sometimes they're not advertised as widely as they can be. I think, JR, you had the memorial service in the Friday Flash, as I recall. Yeah. And it was a lovely little event. So looking forward to this weekend.
I'm sorry, I know I have my chance, but only because David brought it up, the Memorial Garden. I think it was requested that be on the celebration map by
whenever we redo the map.
When we redo the map, it was requested maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
But maybe when the map gets redone, to make sure that's on the celebration map.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a CROA asset. I mean, it's a CROA property.
Yeah, I got 4 or 5 things.
I
I
gotta
got
go.
shocked. Last meeting, we had a gentleman talk about Bank Rose and Potsdam Park and how it was looking bad, and what we requested and what I would like on future agendas is a status update. What we requested at last meeting was actually go through and do an inventory of CROA properties. That, and I realize we're in a transition and we may not be able to do that in 3 business days. It may take 90 business days, but it'd almost be like, okay, here's the list of properties. Here's are the ones we expected. Here's the status. I'd like this to move forward. I'd like it to be a regular item somewhere in our board book. Seriously, if we sit there and say we got 90 things we need to expect and we can whittle off 10 a month, and it's going to take 9 months, fine. But then we're doing it. We're going through. Here's what we've identified. Here's what we got fixed, so that we kind of have an inventory to move it forward. That's been one of the things we've talked about. And I'd like to have that.
I did have the sidewalks cleaned at that park.
Perfect. Thank you very much. But I want to go even further and say, okay, landscaping, whether we're, whether we're talking Yellowstone, whether we're talking New Leaf, whether we're talking, when we talk for you, we've talked for a while over the last couple of years about how we need to get celebration CROA properties up to celebration standards, and they haven't been there. And we're going to blame it on that company. I can't talk about it anymore because we're only moving forward, but moving forward, we want the status report. We're going to fix it. If we need to allocate monies, we will do that.
And then you put on a consent agenda.
Isn't that
with 10 items
Harry
and-
Potter?
That's
You're
right.
like,
So,
you can't say.
Last time that'll ever happen. Teams, we talked about it. I still want to make the conversion to
Right.
teams. And I know Patrick is in transition phase mode, but we want to make that happen. My magic date is no later than January 1st. So we run all our tests and everything in the interim so that we're moving forward with that.
I gave him the mark for the next board meeting.
You are
Oh,
good.
wow.
Our next board meeting is December 8th. We're not meeting next week because we've got 19 other meetings and other stuff. I will want to have, maybe on December 8th or maybe on January, is actually want to have the IT technology committee actually discuss their budget with the board. I think
Why don't I have that in
it's
my
enough money,
calendar?
we need to do that. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
You've now seen us in action in one day. All right, take care, folks. Have a great
Thank
one.
you.